Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to Aesthetic Imaging Video Tutorials. Let's take a look at what we're going to be working on today. Alright, so as you can see, we got a whole bunch of motion going on. We got a whole bunch of animation, different techniques used. There's actually a lot to go over, so let's just get started. Alright, so we're going to start off by creating a new comp. And we're going to call this one main comp. All right, 1920 by 1080, 30 frames per second. And we'll make this, 20 sounds good for now. And we're going to hit OK. All right, so the first thing we're going to do inside our new composition is double click on our rectangle tool. And you see we've created a rectangle here. To get rid of the stroke, you can either set this number to 0 or click on the word stroke and select the none option. All right, and for fill, we'll kind of make a mid kind of bluish color. All right, so now we're going to go and we're going to twirl open this, well, if you don't have it open, twirl open our shape layer, open our contents, rectangle 1, rectangle path 1, and what we can do is make sure that this is unchecked for the link dimensions. And we're going to set the X, or the horizontal, to 1080 to match the Y. All right, so now we can link that back up and just make this smaller. There we go, that's fine. All right, so now we want to create our text, new text, and we're going to type in aesthetic. All right. And we're going to make this fit into the square. But first thing we're going to do here is you'll notice that I have my rulers open. They were supposed to be closed, so I could show you how to put them on there, but for some reason they're open again. All right, so we go under View, Show Rulers, or Command R. All right, so another thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on our Title Action Safe overlay. So that way we have this little center point coming in here, and we can click up in the ruler and bring that down to about the center, and we can zoom in as far as possible, and bring that right down to the center. That's going to be very important. Also, make sure that you don't move your shape layer from the center, because that will screw up everything. All right, so we're going to take our text and we're going to move it up. I'm holding down Shift while moving up, and I'm going to bring it to about there. Maybe make this a little taller, like that. Bringing that down to there. And we're actually going to go back into our shape layer. And we want to unlink them again. And just kind of bring it down in the Y. Just kind of looking for even spacing between here and here. And that looks fine. So we can create our second text layer here. And this one's going to say imaging. Hit V, move it down to there. And again, trying to keep it center in the bottom portion here. And what we can do is just bring this out a little bit. All right. So here is where the magic happens. What we're going to do is we're going to come in, maybe focus in more here. We're going to come into maybe about 15 frames. We're going to hit S on the keyboard, click on the stopwatch, and actually we're going to move this probably to about 1 second. And then with this at 15 frames, we're going to set this to 0. we go. It might be a little too, a little too slow. So we can just move the keyframe. That's better. All right, so we're going to go in a few frames before it gets to 100. Maybe like 3. And we're actually going to bump up the scale past 100. Probably about, maybe 110. Just like that. All right, so we're going to select all our keyframes here. We're going to right-click, go down to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. And we're going to select our graph editor here. What we can do is click on this little icon right here. And I'll zoom it in a little bit. And I'm holding down Shift while grabbing this handle. And I'm just going to move these over. And you want to make sure that you're on value graph, not speed. So what this is doing is, it's basically it's like a ramp for the speed. It's going to start off slower, get quicker in the middle, and it's going to kind of hang on here, and then pop down to its final size. So let's just take a look at that. And you can even go maybe all right. So that I like that. I think we're good on the square or our box. So now what we want to do is go to the end frame, where it's at full size. So we're going to select both of our text layers, and we're going to take this pick whip right here, and we're going to attach it to our shape layer, which we can rename to the box. Now, the text moves with the box, and that's important. All right, so that's our first section done. Bam, done, just like that. All right, so what we're going to do before we do anything else is we're going to go and in this first column, this is the motion blur. If you don't see it, you can hit F4 on the keyboard, or you can hit the toggle switches and modes. All right, so we're going to turn that on for all three. And one thing we want to do before we get started here is go to composition settings, and we want to go to the advanced tab and make sure, I like to put 90 and then -90 for the shutter phase. And we can actually we can turn down the samples per frame for now. All right, and hit OK. So now we have motion blur, and that's just going to help with the animation. It's just going to look nicer. All right, so we have our first motion going in here. We're going to go to a couple frames, maybe right here. We're going to select all three of them, hit Shift Command D, and that'll duplicate or cut them there. So what we want to do is hit Command close bracket, and that'll bring all our layers to the top and keep them, together. All right, and when we did that, it automatically set the link to this box, which is what we want. And actually what we can do, just to make things a little more cleaner here, we can select our first three, Shift Command C to pre-compose it, and we'll call this box scale. So we're going to be creating a lot of different compositions, so it's going to be pretty important to name them all. All right, so box scale, and we'll change the color to yellow. All right, so now we have this, and there's still going to be keyframes on here. We can hit U, and there they are. We can actually just hit on the stopwatch to get rid of them, because we don't need them for now. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to take off the links, and we're going to duplicate our box. So we're going to call this one box top. And this one box bottom. So now this is where our guidelines come into play. All right, so now what we want to do is actually pre-compose our boxes. So Shift Command C, and we want to do them separately, not together. Shift Command C, and we'll call this box top. Shift Command C for box bottom, and we'll call it that as well. Hit OK. All right, so now what we want to do is go up to View and make sure Snap to Guides is selected. So now we select our rectangle tool, and we can create a mask, and that'll snap right to the center. All right, and we need to do the same for the bottom one, except we want it to be the opposite. So basically only this top will be visible. So if we turn off the bottom, it's gone. All right, so we can select our mask, hit Command C to copy it, and then paste it on the bottom one. Then we can hit M, and we want to change this from add to subtract. Now we have our two halves separated. Now before we do anything, we want to hook these up to their respective boxes. So the imaging will go down to box bottom. Aesthetic will go to box top. All right, so we're going to have this start off like this. So what we want to do is go down and select our bottom and top boxes and hit P on the keyboard to bring up the position. And we're going to right click and go to separate dimensions. And we're going to do that for the bottom. There we go. That'll make things easier. So now what we want to do is just click on the stopwatch for the Y position, and we can actually hit U, and that'll make sure that just the keyframes are visible. Maybe move them over a couple frames. And we're going to go to about there. And what we want to do is just move our top. I'm going to go to 470. That is 70 less than the 540. So for the bottom, we want to move that in the same amount of distance, but in the opposite direction. So here we subtracted 70 from the 540. We can actually add it by clicking on the text here, and we can do plus 70. Hit enter, and that will automatically do the math for you. It's a beautiful thing when that happens. All right. And of course, since we have our text attached to the box still, they move with that. All right, so now what we want to do is we can close these off, and we can create a new text layer. Call this tutorial. Tutorials. All right, so we're kind of losing it here. So what we can do before we do anything else is create our background. So new solid, and we'll make this like a grayish color. Hit OK. And what we can do is hit Shift Command open bracket, and that will move it all the way down to the bottom. So now we have our tutorials text going on here. We can go up to align and just make sure that's centered. There we go. So we actually want to get our keyframes back to see where we're at here. We're going to move to this last keyframe. Hit S to bring up the scale. Click on the stopwatch, and then we want to go to the beginning of the animation. Make sure that our dimensions are unlinked. And under Y, we just type in 0. Another thing you want to do is, all right, so we're going to hit Y. That'll bring up the pan behind tool, because we want to move this center to the actual center here. The way we can do that is while we're dragging it around is we can hit Command, and as you can see, it snaps it to certain points. So we can snap it right to the center. There we go. Let's check on the timing. All right, so we can go a couple frames in. Basically what we're doing with these keyframes when we're adding them in the center here, it's just kind of animation principles. It gives it more life. What we're going to do is make it overshoot and then pull back, kind of like it's, well, exactly like how we did that. It kind of overshoots and then shrinks back down to the final size. So we're going to go a couple frames in. Actually, what we can do is select our layers here and just create a new keyframe. We can move this over. All right. Now we can actually move this past the 610. So we'll do probably maybe 30. So 640. And we can do minus 30. Just like that. And for our tutorials, we can just stretch it out until it matches, just like that. There we go. So now what we can do is take all our keyframes, right click, go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. And then just like what we did for the first section, go to the graph editor. Select our first keyframes. Maybe move them in. This bottom one didn't want to come with the group. Whatever. Yep. So we're just going to do the same thing that we did for the first one. All right. So that's that section all figured out. And we can actually come to the beginning here and just Shift Command D to cut off that tutorials. All right. Select all these. Shift Command D. Command close bracket to bring them all to the top. And then we can take all these layers right here. Shift Command C. And we're going to call this box split. And maybe change this to aqua. I'm just going down the line, changing the colors. All right, so now we have our new comp here, and we can select all the layers and hit U on the keyboard, bring up any keyframes, and we could just get rid of them all. All right, so for this section, we're just going to have this zoom off to the side of the screen. And actually, how we can do that is just maybe just pre-compose all of them together. box leave, we'll call it. All right, so we're going to come in a few frames here. And we're going to hit P for position. Again, separate the dimensions. And click on the stopwatch for the X position. Just come out like that. And just whew, right off the screen. How about that? And then all we have to do here, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Real quick, go in here. Just kind of pull these handles out. And that is way too fast. So let's all right, so we do need to turn motion blur on for this. Yeah, there we go. That's a good speed for now. All right, so now what we're going to do is create our new text layer here. So we're going to go new text, and we're going to call this one text. Super creative. All right, so we're just going to make this bigger. And we're going to align it to the center. And if you want, you can move the anchor point to the center, just like we did before, hitting Y on the keyboard. And I still want to mess around with this, turn this back to 100. It's not really like completely necessary, but all right, move that back to the center. All right, so now we're going to change the color. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so we're going to move this below the box. And then what we're going to do is create a new solid. New solid. Doesn't matter what color. All right, so what we want to do is with our solid selected, we go up to our mask tool. And what we want to do is make a mask around our original box here. So it's going to be about the same. It's going to be the same size. There we go, just like that. Let me bring this back up. All right, so we have our box. And we want to go over to our text and actually hit F4 on the keyboard or your toggle switches. And we're going to go down to where it says track mat. And we're going to set this to alpha inverted. And then what we're going to do is take our solid and pick whip that to our box leave composition. Now it reveals our text. And we can turn on the motion blur. There we go. That's simple. So now what we want to do is cut our two new layers off at the beginning. So Shift-Command-D. Select these two and just delete them. All right, now select all of our layers here. Shift-Command-D and Command close bracket to bring them to the top. All right, so we can actually pre-compose these little guys here. Shift-Command-C. And this will be box leave comp. All right, so now we can change our box leave comp to what's next? Pink. There we go. So now we want to make sure that nothing is selected here. So click out of there, make sure nothing is selected, and we're going to go up to our pen tool. Now we want to create a line going across the center here, but as you can see, we can't get to the center without, selecting our line or our guide. So we can go up to View, View, Lock Guides. There we go. Now we're in the center. All right. So we're going to click on the right-hand side over here, and then go over to the left. Yeah, just like that. Now we want to change the fill to be none, and stroke is going to be white. And let's see. We'll make the stroke width 9 pixels. What we also want to do is select our anchor point, hit down Command, and snap it to the end. We can actually go in here and make sure that it's on the center line. There we go. And of course we can cut off the beginning here. Okay, so for this one, we want to twirl open our shape layer, twirl open our contents, and what we want to do is go to Add, and we want to add a Trim Paths. So we twirl that open. You can see what this is doing. So we can animate this on, so we can bring it to 0%. Maybe come in a few frames here. Click on the stopwatch for the end. Go to, let's see, maybe about 25, 10 frames or so. Set that all the way to 100. Do an easy ease. Go in. So as you can see, it's pretty much repeating a lot of stuff. There we go. Just something real quick. All right, what we can also do is turn on the motion blur. So now what we want to do is take our text and duplicate it. So duplicate that, and it's still set to alpha inverted, so set that to no track matte. And we're going to move it above our shape layer and set the shape layer to be alpha matte text. So now the line is only visible inside of our text. And guess what? That's it for that section. So we can take all of these layers here, Shift Command D, Command close bracket, and then we can select our previous layers here, Shift Command C, and we'll call this text line. There we go. Change the color to a lavender. Let's just do a quick review of what we've done so far. I'm hitting N on the keyboard, by the way, to shorten the comp, to bring this over. So N will bring it to wherever your playhead is. So let's review this. Cool. We're getting there. There's actually just, 2 or 3 more sections to go through. It's pretty easy stuff. And to clean things up, we can actually get rid of our light gray solid here. Unlink those and just delete it. Oh, and also select our text and change that to no track matte. So now what we can do is take our shape layer And we'll actually rename this to line. Maybe go back in here, change this to line, change this to line matte. And we can take both of these and duplicate them. So now we have 2 copies. So this is going to be line bottom. And this will be line top. So we're going to go in a few frames here. We're going to select our line top and our line bottom. And we're going to hit R to bring up the rotation. Check off the stopwatch. Go to maybe like that. And for our line top, we want to go to 90. And for our line bottom, we want to go in the opposite direction, negative 90. So now what we're going to do, we can get rid of our box sleeve. I don't know why that's even still there. All right, so now what we're going to do is duplicate our text layer. So Command D, that's duplicated. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to change the color of this to maybe like a blue. There we go. And we're going to move this down below this text here. Now what we're going to do is create a new solid, kind of like what we did before. Doesn't matter what color. We're going to just poke out its little eye. We're going to take our mask tool. Make sure Snap to Guides is selected. And we're going to create a mask over half of it. And what we want to do is make sure that we are actually at the endpoints here. So what we're going to do is create another guide like that. And a guide like that. So now we can go over to our solid. And select both of these on the end here. Shift, move them to the side. There you go. Select these two. Shift, move them. Whoop. Select these two. Select them and drag and press Shift, and that'll snap it right to the guide. So now we have half of our text is gone. So what we want to do is duplicate that. And last time what we did was just change the mask to subtract. That's not going to work because that's going to make everything disappear. We actually want to hit S on the keyboard, unlink them, and change the Y to negative 100, just like that. And then we want to take our pan behind tool, so press Y, and we want to snap the anchor point right to that point right there, right on the edge, right on the corner. Do the same for our other box. So we can duplicate our lines and the masks for the lines. Move them down to right above our solids that we created. So we can move this box, which is our bottom, below the other one. And we could call this box top again. And we can call this one box bottom. So we can take our box top, pick whip it to our line top, take our box bottom, pick whip it to the line bottom. Now our boxes move with our lines. So now what we want to do is actually poke out the eyeballs of our lines, select all the layers that are contributed to our lines and our box tops and bottoms here. We're going to pre-compose that, Shift Command C, and we're going to call this text matte. Actually go back in here, make sure that our motion blur is turned on. There we go. So now that we have that going, so we can take our text matte, or we can take our yellow text here and set this to alpha matte. There we go. Now we have our reveal of our blue. So we can take all of our layers here, Shift Command D to split them. And again, Command close bracket. And actually, we want to split this guy also. There you go. Select all these. And we can go to Pre-Compose. And we can call this one Text Split. Maybe change the color to, what's next, peach. And now for the last section. All right, so we can take all of our layers except for our blue text. Blue text. So we can take all of these layers, select them, and just get rid of them. All right, so this is the final stage here. All right, so what we're going to do is make sure that nothing is selected. And we're going to go up to our pen tool. And just to make things easier, we'll come up to here and then shift and click down here. That'll create our line. We can actually zoom in here, maybe hit V. And just to make things easier, we'll make sure it's on this guide. There we go. All right, so what we want to do is come down here, open up Contents, open up Shape, and open up Stroke 1, and set this, instead of butt cap, to a round cap. And what we can actually do is raise the stroke width, maybe something like that. So now what we're going to do, like we did for the first one, for our first line that we made, is we're going to add a trim paths. Twirl that open. We're going to have it come out from the center. So it's going to shoot up and it's going to shoot down. So in order to do this, we're going to go to Start, set it to 50. End, set it to 50. There we go. So what we're going to do now is click on the stopwatch for both of these. Let's hit U, so we have nothing but the keyframes showing up. And we're going to go to maybe about here. And we're going to set the start to 0 and the end to 100. Just like that. Easy ease. And we're going to make sure we're on the last keyframe here. And we're going to hit P for position. And again, separate dimensions. Right click, separate dimensions. And we're going to be moving on the X. So we're going to hit the stopwatch for the X. Maybe hit U again. Bring up the keyframes. And we're going to just pan this across so we get right on that line, just like that. And what we can do is, all right, so we're going to take this keyframe and we're going to move it in a few frames, And then click on the stopwatch for the position. And then go to that second keyframe here. And we're going to kind of bring it over like that. So it's kind of like winding up and then shoots over. Maybe have it overshoot a little bit. And actually what we can do here, select both of these keyframes because I did that the opposite. So what we want to do is select both of these keyframes, go to Keyframe Assistant, Time Reverse Keyframes. That way it overshoots and then pops back into place. Maybe select all these keyframes, hit Alt or Option, and click and drag. What that does is moves the keyframes, but moves them evenly. See that? There we go, that's fine. Select those keyframes, easy, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. And you know the drill. Maybe have this really hang like that. There we go. All right, so now that we have all of that set up, what we're going to do is create a new solid. I'll call this one matte. Move it right above the text blue here. And we're going to create a mask. Make that really long. Make sure it goes off as far as we can. And then we can take the pick whip it to the shape layer. All right. Take our shape layer, make sure that the motion blur is turned on. Take our matte, make sure the motion blur is turned on. Oh, we got a little bit coming through here. All right, so we're going to hit Y, pan behind, and we're going to, just kind of bring that to there. And we can just scale this up a bit until that blue little part of our text is hidden. And then finally, what we can do is create a keyframe for our start and end, and then just bring that back down to 50 and 50. All right, let's play back the whole thing. Ooh, okay. Hold on. All right, so before we do anything, we can select our two layers here, split them, get rid of the beginning, and if you want, you can pre-compose these, but I think you get the idea. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. I hope you found that useful. Don't forget, learn, apply, and grow. So you learn this stuff, now apply it to your own work and grow. Do it, okay? All right. Thanks for watching, guys.